and welcome to Women in Retail Talks. I'm Ashley Taradio, Senior Content Strategist at the Women in Retail Leadership Circle, and today I'm joined by Debbie Gonzalez, Vice President of Merchandising and Brand Management at Toltex and TSC Apparel, a bulk wholesale clothing company. Today we're going to be talking about how TSC Apparel is adapting during the coronavirus pandemic, how Toltex is redirecting its efforts to produce face masks for the healthcare industry, a little bit about Debbie's leadership style, and much more. So Debbie, thanks for joining me today.
No, thank you for having me. I'm super excited about this.
Good. So I was thinking we could get started by you telling us just a little bit about your background and your role at TSC and Toltex.
Sure. So I've been in the fashion industry probably 30 years, a little over 30 years. Honestly, I kind of fell into it and fell in love with it. It wasn't anything I studied. I started off as a darkroom attendant in a company in Miami. And even though that was the worst job I've ever had, I absolutely knew I loved everything about it. It was one of those moments where you're like, oh, this is really what I should be doing, even though this part of it sucks almost. But it was just that moment where I knew like, this is where I fit in. And so I grew very quickly at that company. Within a few years, I was heading a team. And a few years after that, I had a whole division that I was in charge of. And through a series of, I want to say, recruitments, I ended up working for big brands like Apparel, Levi's, Dockers. And I think most of them were, or all of them were really in creative roles, creative director of merchandising. I think it allowed me to really look at brands from a different perspective and understand what branding and identity meant. And I really started to understand, why a brand had a voice and why it had an identity and how it spoke to its customers. And I think it's really what got me the job at Toltex. My role at Toltex is really to bring this little brand out of its shell and tell this beautiful, rich story about a brand that was, started in 1926 with a true American entrepreneurial, spirit and innovation. And nobody for the last 20 years has been talking about this brand from that perspective and in that voice. And I've been with the company for about a year, and we've rebranded and we're telling that story, and we're really kind of showing up with the DNA of this brand and what this brand was really all about back in the 20s and 30s.
Gotcha. And it sounds like you grew really fast in your career. That's amazing.
Yes.
So the coronavirus pandemic has us all rattled. I wanted to see how you and TSC Apparel are adapting right now.
Yeah, look, it's no secret, right? We're definitely in some really strange and uncertain times. Things change daily. And I think like many other companies, we really are trying to foster creativity over crisis, really trying to look for ways for us to use the talent that we have on hand and find ways to show up, right? I think that times like this ultimately define you, who you are as a person, who you are, as a state, as a company, as a country, as humankind. What are we doing to get through this, and how do we do it together? For us, it was really, for us adapting really was figuring out how do we use our resources and how do we supply a need for the people that were in most need. So frontliners and healthcare workers, and, keeping them safe, finding ways that we could be more nimble than we have been in the past, I guess I should say.
Yeah, and that actually leads me to my next question. So Toltex is redirecting its efforts to produce face masks for the healthcare industry amid the widespread shortage. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, we very quickly started to see stories popping up of nurses and doctors that were short on PPEs. And then the next story after that was like, people making homemade masks. And we thought, well, wait, like we have a ton of fabric and we have machines, like we can make a ton of this stuff. And we got together very quickly. Within 48 hours, we went from sketch to final proto to production. And we went to market in 4 days with a mask that really is not a surgical mask. It's not really anything that you could take, that a healthcare worker could wear. It's not FDA approved, but we knew at some point, we thought maybe this is just a Band-Aid until they get what they need. And like everything in this world right now, things change so quickly that within a matter of a week, this really became a necessity, not just for, healthcare workers and frontliners, but then this became a necessity for essential workers, for the consumer. And so we thought what we thought we were doing was creating this mask for the healthcare workers, and really what we ended up doing was creating this mask that everybody kind of needs in this present moment. So what we accomplished in 48 hours, from a marketing, website, supply chain, sales, even finance, we did all that. I mean, we went from a sketch on, on a paper to product in 4 days, with all of those things in line, with a supply chain, plan for 2 million pieces, a sales plan with a whole sales team, a website and a marketing plan. And never in my entire 30 years of living have I worked with a team that was that nimble and that quick, to turn that around. And we were super fortunate also that we reached out to our partners in Mexico, who really, without them, we would not have been able to do this. So we called them and we said, there's a need in the market for this, and we want to do this. Will you support us? And they literally dropped what they were doing, brought their entire development team to a call on a Sunday afternoon, and they were on board from day one. And really, we wouldn't have not been able to do it without them. So I think what this has allowed us to do is create a product in the market that is in super high demand, but also it has given us an opportunity to keep our doors open and use the talent that we have on staff, and, support them. And in a time where there aren't any events or promotions happening right now, retail's closed, that's a big part of our business. There aren't concerts, that's a big part of our business. And so this is like really allowing a lot of good to happen across the board, not just that we're supplying medical, and we're not supplying a mask in the market, but we're also really giving an opportunity for our business to survive during this time.
Yeah, and therefore, keeping a lot of people employed.
For sure.
It's really inspiring how quickly Toltex jumped into action, your partners too, and the impact you're making. And Toltex actually has a history of adapting its business operations to help the country in uncertain times. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so this is like one of my favorite stories about this brand. This brand was, founded in 1926. It was family owned. They were knitters out of the Northeast, somewhere in Virginia, Martinsville, I think. And they were innovators. And I think in the early 30s, they started to create a new fabrication, which we today know as fleece, and most of us probably live in it, right? Anything that's a sweatshirt or sweatpant is fleece. And the Army came to them and said, we need an insulated garment for our troops. Can you do something for us? And very quickly, this family, the Pano family, just turned around and changed all of their production to doing an olive drab sweatshirt for the Army. And they were producing for them throughout World War II. This is why I think it was so important for us to show up this way too, right? It's in our DNA and our heritage of our brand. We would be doing a huge injustice to the Pano family had we not created this initiative.
Yeah. Why do you feel it's important for companies who are capable of lending a hand to jump in and help however they can? And what suggestions do you have for businesses who want to give back at this time, but maybe don't know how?
Yeah, I mean, look, besides it being the right thing to do, this will also ignite your team, your company, your peers, your leaders, your customers. We get countless emails from customers on a daily basis telling us how proud they are to be one of our customers, that we're doing this. And so, if we weren't focused on this mass initiative, it would be like a really scary and sad time for all of us, I think.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
what will we be really worried about? Because we really won't be selling t-shirts. So I think this just gives us a purpose, right? The mere fact that I wake up every day and I have a product in production that serves a huge purpose gives me solace in a time where it's almost it's really hard to find like comfort in your own home, right? Like, so I think that's one of the things that I am most proud of, that I have something that gives me just gives me inspiration every day.
Yeah. So let's shift gears a little bit. I wanted to talk a little bit more about you and your team. How has this crisis changed the way you're communicating with them?
Yeah, so I think communication is key during this time, right? Complete transparency should really be at the top of the list. The last thing you want is for your teams to feel uncertain about their livelihood or their position, or there's just so much of that on a day-to-day basis with the news and everything that's happening with this virus. So we are in over communication mode, like from texting at all hours of the day, phone calls, video conferencing, emojis, lots of emojis all the time, right? It's just over communication has just been part of the process. And, I think also this experience has brought us closer and has unified us. There's also a human aspect of what's going on that allows us to be vulnerable, where we probably would never want to be vulnerable in certain parts of your career. But here we are in an uncertain time, not really knowing what's happening. And we all come together and have an initiative that we believe in. And it just gives us a sense of family and a sense of unity. And I think, also what it's done is it's opened up those lines of communication. It also opens up the creativity, right? Those that maybe are not in a creative role show up and they're creative because everybody's communicating about it. And so we're open to ideas and we're open to each other. And I think if anything, if there's a silver lining anywhere, I would say that this experience has brought us closer as a leadership team, has brought us closer as a company. And there's mad respect for all the people that have stepped up and ran with this initiative.
You talked about over communicating. I feel like every leader we've been talking to recently agrees with that. They that's their advice as well, is to just over communicate with their teams.
Yeah, I mean, I think you want to convey a sense of comfort, right? I think the people that are with us are the people that we believe are going to get us through this and are going to be on the other side when we're ready to ramp up. And so we have to make sure they know that they're hearing it every day, and that they also know that we are in the back working to get us back up and going.
Absolutely. And that kind of leads me to my last question. What type of leader are you? How would you describe your leadership style? And how is your leadership style helping you navigate the COVID-19 crisis?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I've had a lot of leadership styles because I started off really young. I'm definitely not like that 27-year-old that was back then. I think that I learned a really big lesson in 2009 when I had to let go of a lot of people that I had handpicked and mentored. And that was super painful. But it also made me realize that I was probably not being the best leader or the best mentor for those people, and that I could have maybe expanded their roles. And I started to look at candidates and at my team members a little bit different. And I was really looking for what I call hybrids. So people that are multi-talented and super high output. And the other thing is I really don't like to micromanage, so I'm kind of hands off. So when I pick you, I have full confidence that you can do the job. And I'm not really looking for someone where it needs a lot of hand holding. I'm definitely someone who's going to mentor you and who's going to empower you and who's going to give you all the right tools for you to succeed. And I think there's an enormous amount of power in empowering someone to giving them the freedom to figure out what they want and what they're good at. I work really hard to pinpoint people's talents and make sure that we're both aligned with what they want to do and what they want to accomplish. But I'm very hands off, and I have a super efficient team. It allows me to be super lean, so that I could either pay them more or have more access to other other tools.
Well, Debbie, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Women in Retail Talks.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at wirlc.com/podcasts for show notes. Women in Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review this podcast. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Women in Retail Talks.